right, we're recording. Mallory's here with me for this weekly meeting. Mallory, since you're here with me, you don't need to send any attendance words or anything. I'll explain that here in a second. But Mallory, I do need you when we're done to, at the very least, send me an email and remind me that you were present and to give you your extra credit. That also provides a paper trail. So please do that. For the rest of you, obviously no one else is here, so you are watching a video. So what I'm going to do is throughout this video, I'm going to give you attendance words or attendance phrases, like a list of things that you need to send me in the email that says, hey, I watched this video. I'm claiming my 5 points of extra credit. Also, another thing that I want you to keep in mind throughout this whole thing, I guess this goes for Mallory too. Well, hold on. One of the things I want to tell you throughout this video, keep in mind that the last thing I'm going to ask you for the attendance words is you need to ask me a question about the content that I've given you in this meeting, right? So a question about something that was said in this meeting. Even if you think you understood everything, I need you to come up with a question just to clarify. It helps prove that you were paying attention. And also, just in case you mess something up, then I could correct you, and you'll know the correct answer. The other thing I want to tell you to think about throughout this meeting, and this one does go for you too, Mallory, is you can get extra credit in the Module 1 discussion or the Module 2 discussion if you write a summary about this meeting, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is review Module 1 and talk about some of the common mistakes that were made in Module 1. So if you want to summarize that and go to the Module 1 discussion and start a new thread that says extra credit and then summarize what I said here, you can get extra credit. The more accurate it is, the more points you'll get. Same thing, after I'm done talking about the review for Module 1, I'm going to jump into some advice for Module 2. And again, if you feel like summarizing it in writing for me or for your classmates, and go to the Module 2 discussion, start a new thread, and name it extra credit or whatever, and summarize this in writing for extra credit. And again, the more accurate it is, the more points you'll get. Now, also some common sense here. When I say the more accurate, I also don't mean like I don't want you to literally write down everything I said word for word and post that. That wouldn't be very useful. I really would like a summary so your classmates can get a gist of what was said here. But that being said, Mallory, do you have any questions before we get started?
No, I do not.
All right, let's jump into it. Let me share my screen. If you don't have any questions, Mallory, if you don't mind maybe muting yourself until you do have a question, at which point you can unmute yourself. All right, we've got the screen pulled up. The first half of this should be fairly quick. So the mistakes I saw in Module 1 were the same mistakes I mentioned in last week's meeting where I said, hey, make sure you don't do this. So let's really quickly look at it. And again, I'm going to go through this quickly because for the most part, the mistakes are the same. So anyway, some of the biggest mistakes I've noticed. So again, this isn't necessarily about coal, right? Right here it says in big bold letters, the purpose of this discussion is to demonstrate that you understand the different ethical points of view, right? So that's the point of this, is to demonstrate your understanding of these ethical points of view. I just happen to choose coal as the question that you're answering to demonstrate it. Could have been about anything. I just happen to choose coal because we're in West Virginia and a lot of people have a strong opinion about coal. So anyway, yeah, a lot of people lost points because they failed to say what their ethical point of view was. Very few people did that. And again, I still have a lot of grading to do, but I have so far seen more often the replies are the ones that failed. So in your response, as it says right here, again, you need to use an ethical point of view and say, I agree with what you said, or I disagree with what you said, right? Based on this particular ethical point of view. So I saw more of it in the replies than I did the initial post, where people were not basing it on the ethical points of view. Another common mistake I saw was they didn't define it. So even for the people that did use, I based mine off of biocentric ethics. Well, I know it seems redundant, but I also want you to define your ethical point of view. Whether it be your initial post or your reply, you need to define your ethical point of view. One, just because you writing it down does help you learn it. And two, it helps your classmates learn it. So yeah, those are some of the bigger mistakes. Moving forward, okay, another big, not big mistake. One of the mistakes I saw a few times, and people didn't lose many points for this, but some people used virtue ethics, which is all about your intentions, but then they went on to describe the consequences of using coal. So those things don't jive, right? Virtue ethics is all about what did you intend to do? Were you trying to do this? Were you trying to do that? Consequence-based ethics is all about like what actually happened. And I'll give a really quick example. This is a crazy example, and I'm just making it up. Imagine somebody broke into an old lady's house because he wanted to steal her prescription drugs to sell them. He breaks in, he sees her laying unconscious on the floor. Like, oh my goodness, this woman's, she might be dead. He checks her pulse. It's very low. He calls 911, gives her CPR, and then escapes. Right? By virtue ethics, he was in the wrong. He broke in there with the intention of stealing her medicine. By consequence-based ethics, he didn't do anything wrong because he didn't steal her. He ended up not stealing her medicine and actually ended up saving her life. So anyway, that's a quick example. Do you have any questions about these different ethical points of view? All right. Okay. Some other points that I saw lost that other than what I've already mentioned. Some people did not pick an ethical point of view from the correct list. So again, your initial post, you should be choosing from one of these for your initial post, and for your reply, you should be choosing one of those. The first word for attendance, and you need to look at the screen for this, is to tell me what page I have highlighted right now. I have it highlighted up at the top right, and I'm kind of moving my cursor around it. Page what? So I guess your first word for attendance is not a word at all, but a number. Anyway, moving forward. So again, people chose the wrong list. Like I said, some people have failed to define their ethical point of view. Again, like I said earlier, not relating that definition to your answer, that's worth 2 points. If you didn't do it at all, you missed 2 points. But if you did it incorrectly, like I mentioned earlier, that's more likely that you would lose the 2 points for that. And here's the big one, the huge one. You have to properly incorporate references. If you haven't read this document, please read it. You have to use sources correctly. First of all, you need at least one non-textbook source for each post. You need to have a working link that brings us directly to the source. Actually, I might as well keep this open while I'm talking about it. Every fact that you state has to have a source, even if it's common knowledge, right? Coal mining is bad for the environment. Yeah, okay, I agree. But if you're going to state it as a fact, you need to have a source for it. Otherwise, you could state it as not a fact, right? So instead of saying coal mining is bad for the environment, you could say something like, I've always been told, or I've always heard that coal mining is bad for the environment, right? You're not stating it as a fact that way. You're just kind of saying, this is what I think. Or like somebody has mentioned earlier, you could say, in my opinion. So make sure, again, you have at least one source. Every fact that you have has a source. Again, you have to have a clickable link. One common example that I saw that I warned people about was, I need a link to the exact page, right? So if you use National Geographic, an article about coal, then I need a link that takes me directly to that article. Don't give me www.nationalgeographic.com that's going to take me to the homepage. Another thing, you need to clearly indicate how you use your source, and I'm not going to talk too much about this. I've already talked about it. But just basically make it obvious, like according to this source, blah, 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 right? So every time you have a fact, anybody reading it should be like, oh, yep, I know exactly where they got that fact from. If you're going to directly quote your source, make sure you use quotation marks. As far as I know, I don't remember anybody making that mistake. Also, if you claim something, this is a pretty big deal, and I haven't seen this. If you say something, make sure your source actually says that. It doesn't like say something else. Yeah. So again, make sure you use sources. Read this document if you want. And I think that's it for the discussion. And I will say this, and I'm not going to this is the first time ever that I'm going to do this because not enough people are watching these videos. I'm not going to write this down. Usually I write this down in the announcements. This time I'm not going to write it down. I'm going to say it right now. For these discussions, well, for anything, if you didn't get full credit, go back and do more. I'm okay with it, right? So after I'm done grading, and I'm not done grading yet, but after I'm done grading, if you did, and I post that announcement that says I'm done grading, if you didn't get your full 25 points, go back and do extra credit or do more replies. Do whatever you need to do to get your full 25 points. And just like I said last time, this is all unofficial, right? Officially, according to the syllabus, this is all past due and you're not going to get any points. Unofficially, if you do it, I can't guarantee you I'll have time to grade it, but I guarantee you I'll try, right? So my priority is new work. That if you do this, I will. I mean, especially for module 1, I can almost guarantee you I'll have time to grade it. But the point is, you don't want to wait until like the last weekend of the semester and do this all at once, because then I definitely won't have time to do it. So anyway, yeah, if you didn't get full credit, just do some more replies, do some extra credit, and get your points back. And if you need help, let me know. And speaking of getting help, and let me know, like I mentioned last time, if you meet me online one-on-one, where I can give you detailed feedback on any of your assignments, discussion, lab, quiz, exams, whatever, then I can give you a 5% boost to that grade. So anyway, any questions about the module 1 discussion? All right. That was nice and easy. So the next thing we're going to talk about is lab 1. And that is your next word for attendance. Lab 1. Let's see. What are some? I'm trying to think of some of the big stuff. I have a feeling some people didn't read this, right? They didn't read the hypothesis testing document, and they didn't read this examples. And I have no way of proving that, but if you didn't, that's on you. You really need to read these 2 documents, because without knowing these things, you can't really move forward with for the labs, the other 7 labs in this course. So make sure you read those. If you read them, there's extra credit in there too. You'll know what I mean if you've seen them. You don't have to do the extra credit, but I do recommend it. Anyway, people, again, I still have a lot of grading to do, but as far as I know, no one messed this up yet. Sometimes people will say, their hypothesis is that it'll increase, and then they'll choose decrease or something for their prediction. Those have to match. Otherwise, you're going to lose points. But again, I don't think I saw anybody mess that up. Here's a big mistake I've already seen. Some people did not fill out this table. You have to fill out the table. If I cannot read if I don't know what your data is, then I don't know if your graph is correct. So you'll lose all the points there. I don't know if your hypothesis was correct or not. Man, I got a lot of errors on here. Anyway, I don't know if your hypothesis was correct or not. So I can't grade that. I don't know if your fish's data was similar to the other fish's data, so I can't grade that either. So if you didn't do it, again, like I said earlier, unofficially, I'm telling you, go in, you can redo your exam or redo your labs, correct your mistakes. Correct your mistakes and resubmit. And again, for the first time ever, I'm not going to write that down in the announcements. I'm only saying it verbally because I want people to watch these videos and join these meetings. So any questions about the table? All right. And again, I still have a lot of grading to do. So what I'm about to say is based off of what I've seen in previous semesters. A lot of times people they get this messed up. They go in the wrong order. So once you go onto that link and you go to that website and get the data, it doesn't start here and then go here and then go here and then go here and go here, right? It doesn't. If it were up to me, it would. If I remember correctly, it starts at room temperature and then maybe goes down and starts at the top. I don't know. But anyway, make sure you do that. Make sure your averages are correct. Like when you do your averages, it needs to be these numbers, right? You don't want to average in your temperature. So anyway, any questions about the table? All right. The graph, good grief, a lot of mistakes on this. Sorry. Anyway, with the graph, yeah, you can read it. Please do too, because again, there's going to be graphs on almost every lab we do. I actually had a complaint about that once from a student. But this is a science class, and part of science is compiling data and organizing it and displaying it, right? So yeah, there's going to be a lot of graphs. If you need help, let me know. Make sure you read this document about graphing, and you're probably going to need to refer back to it throughout the semester. And once again, there's some hidden extra credit in that document. So please read it, and if you feel like doing the extra credit, please do it. So far, from what I have graded for your course, which hasn't been much, I haven't seen many mistakes about this graph. A handful of people just completely failed to do the graph, so that's a big mistake. Again, if you did, go ahead and do it, and then resubmit it. One person left some feedback saying that they weren't very familiar with how to do graphs on Google. But I want to say, I would point this out right here. You don't have to do it on Google, right? You can do it by hand and take a picture of it. You can do it on Excel. You can do it on any program you want. However you need to make a graph, it doesn't matter. You don't have to use Google. Just make a graph and insert it here. Any questions about the graph? Oh yeah, let me give you one other example too. A common mistake that'll make a big difference later in the semester. Some people are taking they did the graph maybe on like Google Sheets or whatever, and then they took a screenshot of that whole Google Sheet and inserted that instead of just the graph. And when you do that, I can barely read the graph, and sometimes I can't read it at all. So you're not going to want to do that. Make sure I can read the graph, because if I can't read it, I'm just going to have to mark it wrong because I don't know if the data and the units and all that are correct. So yeah, make sure you do that. Any questions about the graph? All right. So far, everybody's done a good job with question 14. Well, excuse me, question 15. Question 16, that's pretty spot on. This one's a little bit difficult. People have been messing this up. I didn't take many points away, but this is asking you to pretend like you're an actual scientist, right? You're doing this experiment. Pretend it's in real life. What can you do to make it more meaningful? So I saw some good ideas, like, oh, we should use other fish. Actually, I won't even get it. I won't waste your time doing it. But I guess the point is, whenever you get questions like this, hopefully you think more into it. But at the very least, as explained up here in the introduction somewhere, at the very least, any experiment you do, for the most part, could probably be improved if you had better sample size. Because even though we don't use statistics in this course, it's still there. So, that's always something to think of. And I would give more examples, but again, some people might want to redo their lab, or some people probably haven't done the lab yet. And again, if you haven't done the lab, do it, turn it in late. Anyway, so yeah, any questions about that? All right, why do we take an average? I think so far pretty much everyone did good on that. They've included a link. That's usually the biggest mistake. I haven't seen that mistake yet off the top of my head. I could be wrong. One person missed this. So one question says, do you think these results can be applied to all goldfish or just the goldfish in your experiment? I mean, the true answer is just the goldfish in your experiment, because again, statistically, you don't have enough sample size. However, you're not going to lose points if you said all goldfish. But the point is, the point I was about to make is, I think the person that lost, the one person off the top of my head that lost points, messed this up, because on one hand they said, I think it cannot be applied to all goldfish, just the goldfish in my experiment. And then they went on to say, I think it can be applied to all fish. So you have to be logical, right? These questions are related. If you don't think it can be applied to all goldfish, then it surely can't be applied to all fish. And then another student, if I remember correctly, and she might just need to meet with me and help me clarify what she was trying to say. And some of her answers, she said both. It cannot be applied to all goldfish, but it can be applied to all goldfish. And she and I have emailed, so it may have been a misunderstanding. But again, this is a good time to remind you, please meet me online. Let's go get some feedback. And maybe me giving you feedback, or maybe you explaining what you were trying to say, in which case you'll just get some points back, right? I make mistakes, so feel free to call me out. Say, I think you misunderstood what I was trying to say. I'm fine with that. It's a learning experience for you and me. I love feedback. I love it when you question your grades. You learn from it, right? If you have to defend something that you wrote, it's really gonna stick with you. Anyway, other ways to measure respiration rate. Some people came up with other experiments. I'm saying specifically, like here you counted how many times they open and close. Maybe I should change that. Here you counted the times they open and close their mouth. I'm saying, what other ways could you do it? And the most common correct answer was you could count how many times their gills move, right? That's an indication of their breathing. One mistake I did see, and I like the way this person was thinking, but they said something like, we could see how much they're moving around, because if they're moving around a lot, that means their respiration rate is up. And that's true. I would assume that's true. But the problem with that is, it's the moving around a lot that would cause the respiration rate to increase, right? As opposed to the temperature of the water. So while moving around a lot would cause the respiration rate to increase, that's not a good measurement of respiration, right? Because you're looking at a cause. I hope that makes sense. If not, meet me separately and we'll talk about it. But because time is time is valuable, so I want to keep moving. So then, all right, then you're gonna. This is a common theme. Well, never mind. So this next question says, come up with a hypothesis for this question. Does the respiration rate of goldfish increase as they are exposed to increasingly louder noises? Again, I have a lot to grade, but so far the biggest mistake I'm seeing is this up here. You need to read about hypothesis testing, and this specifically the relationship between hypotheses and predictions. A hypothesis is not an if-then statement. That's a prediction, right? So a hypothesis could be, yes, the respiration rate of goldfish will increase as it is exposed to increasingly louder noises. And then you can follow that up with, right here, with a prediction, if we, and again, you can base it off of this and just reword it, right? If we put goldfish in a bowl, increase the noise, and count the number of breaths they take, then we will find that the respiration rate will increase, right? So again, I wanted that question to be easy. I wanted those two questions. You could just base it off of this and just reword it. And again, this is very important. If you haven't read these documents, please read them. Hypothesis testing and examples of the relationship between hypotheses and predictions. Any questions so far? All right. Really quickly, I want to point this out too. Some people have lost points because they didn't save it, or a point, because they didn't save it as a PDF. Make sure you save it as a PDF before you upload it. Just go up here to File, Download, and when you download it, do it as a PDF. It's just that easy. And that seems picky, but you'll see why. Later in the semester, it'll be very important. In short, when you upload it not as a PDF, sometimes there's some kind of glitch with Moodle, and it's like half of your stuff is missing. And if I can't see it, I can't grade it, and you're just going to lose. You're going to lose a lot of points. Anyway, really quickly.
I have a question.
Yeah, good question.
If we decide to redo it, do you want us to just remove our original submission, or do you want to be able to see the first one?
Great question. So, because you did this, because it's on Google, you'll have that copy, so you can go back into your original copy and edit it, right? Since it's still in your Google Drive. And then when you edit it, you're going to delete your old file and upload the new one. And here's a video for each one of these labs. This bottom video, here's a short video that explains how to delete your old submission before uploading your corrected submission. So great question. And that's my short answer. And the long answer is to watch this little video right there. Is that good? Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect. That's a great question. I'm glad you asked. All right. Really quickly, if you did this extra credit lab, you need to let me know. Those extra credit points will be applied. If you lost any points in the Module 1 lab, they will be applied to your Module 1 lab, and then the leftovers will be applied to your semester total. Whoops. The other thing, one person, for example, and I don't blame her for this, she said she'd written in here, it's like, hey, can you apply these points to my discussion? And there's nothing wrong with asking, but the answer is no. I mean, I'm going to apply these points to your grade or your entire semester. So, and I didn't make that clear, so I'm not talking bad about that person, but I just wanted to make it clear now. Another thing, you're going to get this question a lot. Can you think of another lab students can do, right? So every module lab, you're going to have this question. So think about it. First of all, it needs to be, if you're going to answer it, it needs to be relevant to the module, right? It has to be data about, or it has to be about the module we just did, and it needs to be feasible. And I don't see, right? So I don't want students having to go buy a bunch of stuff. And not every, some students, this is an online class. Some students might be living in a high rise in New York City. It might not, so if your suggestion is to, go to the mountains and count how many pine trees are in an acre or whatever, like not everybody can do that. So when you answer this question, if you do, like, put yourself in my shoes, what can an online student do for this module that can, it only takes 1 week and that does not require them to purchase any material? Anyway, and then this question, again, I'm asking about this is a question you're going to get throughout the semester, which is why I'm taking the time to talk about it. How can this lab worksheet be improved, right? So I don't need your feedback on the website. It's not my website, right? So I can't do anything about it. So I want to know how the worksheet can be improved. Is it like, well, you can read about it if you want. And if you have any extra credit for the ideas, definitely leave them here. And also, I'll go ahead and tell you, if you have an extra credit idea and it doesn't require a lot of work, you just go ahead and do it without even asking me. Just do it and say, oh, by the way, here, I did this for extra credit. Will it count? And it probably will, and I'll probably give you some points. Then again, it might not. So if it's going to take a lot of work, you might want to check with me first. But if it's just something small, like one person said, write a poem about this. I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. You could probably, yeah, I'll give you a few points for that. So anyway, if you have an idea, just go for it. And your next word for extra credit, your next word for attendance is extra credit. Like that's, your next words. So in the list of words that you have to send me, extra credit is the next one, is the next phrase. Any questions about Lab 1? Okay. Really quickly, I'm not even talking about the quiz. I'll just say, if you missed it, it is closed. So you need to send me an email and ask me to open it back up for you. And then you can just retake it as many times as you want. And then when you're done, you need to email me and say, okay, I'm fine with my grade, at which point I'll have to go in and average your first grade and your highest grade. So if you missed it, that's a 0, right? So again, you have to let me know. First of all, you have to let me know you want it reopened. And second of all, you have to let me know afterwards that you're ready for me to change your grade. It will not happen automatically. Just like everything else, I'll remind you, if you meet me online, we can look at your answers, and I can give you feedback, and we can talk about the questions you missed if you missed any, and you'll get a 5% boost to your grade. Of course, if you didn't miss any, I guess we can't really meet because there's nothing to talk about. So that's it for Module 1. Any questions about the feedback, the general feedback I gave for Module 1? All right, Module 2. Let's jump into this. Again, I'm trying to be quick because I don't want to waste your time. And if I've gone too quick and you have questions, you can always just meet me one-on-one. So speaking of which, I'll remind you before I even get into this, you can meet me when you're doing an assignment. You can meet me online, and I can walk you through the assignment and help you do it. Or if you don't want to do that, before you submit your assignment, you can meet me online. And I keep saying meet me online because if you just give it to me in writing, you might as well just submit it. I'm trying to save time, to be honest with you. So if you meet me online, I can quickly just say, oh, you're definitely going to lose a lot of points for this, or you're not going to get any points because you didn't do that, right? If you want to briefly meet me online for this discussion or anything else other than quizzes or exams, I will look over your assignment before you submit it and quickly give you the big stuff that you may have missed. Anyway, that being said, let's look into this. As the human population approaches carrying capacity, we essentially have two solutions to this problem: reduce human population growth or increase the carrying capacity. You need to choose between those two. You need to tell me which one you chose, and then you need to come up with an idea of how to do that. So you can't just say, I think we should increase the carrying capacity. You need to give me an idea of how we can increase carrying capacity. Or if you say, I think we should reduce human population growth, you need to give me an idea of how to do that. Does that part make sense? Because that's a common mistake people make. I'll make sure you don't have any questions on that. Okay, so after you do that, you need to post only one advantage to your idea and one disadvantage to the idea. And I'm very strict on the one part because, as you're going to see later, for the replies, other people need to reply one advantage to your idea and one disadvantage. So if you go in and list all the advantages you can think of and all the disadvantages you can think of, then your classmates aren't going to have anything to write about. So only one advantage and only one disadvantage. And let me say this too. This is a common mistake I see. Your advantage needs to be some sort of like, how do I put it? Something else that's good about your idea, right? So if you have this idea, like, I think we should reduce human population growth by starting a lot of wars. No, that's a bad example, but I'm trying to think of a good example, one I've seen in the past. If you think all right, let me put it this way. Again, you can't just say reduce human population growth, right? You need to come up with some specific way, but let's assume that is something okay, that you could say that. And you said, I think we should reduce human population growth. One advantage to my idea is that we would have fewer people, but yeah, so of course we would. That's the whole purpose. So I guess what I'm trying to say is your advantage to your idea should not be your idea. Does that make sense? Like, don't repeat yourself. If you're saying it's an advantage, don't say, Oh, here we go. One possible solution to increasing carrying capacity would be to require every person to eat only the number of calories they burn that day. One advantage to this idea could be decrease the area we need to feed us, right? So that's a fine advantage. Now, what we wouldn't want to say is one possible solution to increasing carrying capacity would be to require every person to eat only the number of calories they burn that day. One advantage to this is that people would be eating less. Like, yeah, that's the point, right? So your advantage shouldn't just be the point of your idea, right? It should be some sort of unintended good consequence is a better way to put it, I guess. Maybe that's how I should write it. One advantage, parentheses, unintended good consequence. Before I move forward, does that make sense to you, Mallory? I'll just make sure because that's people mess that up a lot.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay. Another thing I want to point out because people screw this up a lot too. We're talking about reducing human population growth. We're not talking about reducing the human population. So we're not talking about killing people. Now, granted, you can come up with that idea if you want, because that would also reduce the human population growth. But a lot of people get all, to be quite honest and use a little bit language here, they get pissy because they read this and think reduce human population. We shouldn't be killing people. And that's not what this is about. It can be if that's what you want to make it about, but this is not what it's about. And on that note, a lot of people are people who advocate for this will probably come up with some idea of something that the government could do to help make this happen. But I want to be very clear, it doesn't have to be that way. And this will be even more important in Module 3. It doesn't have to be population control. It doesn't have to be the government like China saying, all right, you can only have this many children. It doesn't have to be that way. It can be if you want. But this is not about population control. This is not about killing humans. This is about reducing the human population growth, which, by the way, as you'll learn as you read the textbook, it is actually human population growth rate is going down. Right, we're still adding more humans to the population every year. It's still growing, but the growth rate is decreasing. So that's worth mentioning. Anyway, those are the biggest mistakes I usually see. Also, because this discussion has seen so many mistakes, I've got this document you can click and read some of the common mistakes that your students have made before. And really quickly, let's look at this. And then again, for every module discussion, you're going to have this rubric that shows you exactly what you're going to lose points for. So, be careful with your typing. Again, like I've already mentioned, you can't just say increase population growth or decrease carrying capacity. You need to come up with an idea. Your idea needs to be unique, as in another student hasn't already posted it. So yeah, that does require you to read your others, or at least glance over your classmates' posts before you post them. So the sooner the better also. But anyway, you won't lose many points if you do that, but you could lose some. But if, like, for example, if 5 students post the same idea and you're the 6th student to do it, yeah, you're probably going to lose more points than the second person who did it because, man, it's been repeated over and over again. So yeah, take a look at that. Again, you need to list an advantage of your idea, or AKA an unintended positive consequence. Make sure you only list one. Same with the disadvantages. Make sure you only list one. And here's the part a lot of people miss. You need to demonstrate that you understand the concept of carrying capacity and population growth by at least defining it and relating it to what your solution is, right? So for both, even if you're talking about carrying capacity, you still need to define population growth, right? So yeah, make sure you define both. And carrying capacity and population growth are related. So you need to find out, when you write your post, make sure you come up with at least one sentence where you kind of interweave the two. Like how, if your idea is about carrying capacity, how does it affect population growth, or how does population growth affect it? Or vice versa. If your idea is about population growth, how does it affect carrying capacity, or how does carrying capacity affect it? Of course, I don't want you being emotional. I want you to be logical. No one's ever messed that up, I don't think, off the top of my head, or it's been a while. And of course, you have to properly use sources for your replies. Again, watch out for errors. Only post one advantage, one disadvantage. It needs to be unique. So again, to be honest with you, I'm not going to go check everybody's post to make sure it hasn't already been posted. So if I'm grading your post and I remember that someone else has already posted it, probably a bunch of people have already posted it if it's sticking out in my mind. So again, do your best to make sure you come up with a unique idea. Yeah, and that's it. And again, as always, for extra credit, you could go to the forum. I'm on being a little slow here. Oh yeah, we're already there. You could add a discussion topic, extra credit, right, and provide feedback, right? How can this discussion be improved, or what's a completely different discussion we can do for module 2? And speaking of extra credit, this is a big one now. You want to pay attention to this one, Mallory, because this is again the first time I'm not posting this in the announcements. I'm only doing it in the video. I have a study guide for your exam that is due this Sunday. To get that study guide, you need to email me and ask me for the study guide. As a matter of fact, when you email me for the extra credit for watching this video, that can be your question. How can I get my question is, how can I get my study guide? And I'll send it to you. And one more thing, that's something else you can do for extra credit. Actually, I'll post it later. I'm going to post something. I'm going to start something where you can start a virtual study group. So if there's a question on the study guide that you don't know, you can post it here and see if your classmates know the answer. But I'll explain that later in the discussions. Anyway, any questions about the Module 2 discussion? This is going on a lot longer than I wanted it to. I apologize. Of course, if you're watching the video, I mean, hopefully we're almost done and it's a moot point, but obviously if it's YouTube, so you can speed the video up. Anyway, Lab 2, natural selection. This is pretty straightforward, so I don't have too much to say about this. The biggest mistake I see is this part right here. There's a video. So after you read the introduction, you need to watch this video. It's a short video and answer these 20 questions. You will get 0 credit for the lab if you do not do this first, right? So this is good preliminary information. Watch that video while answering these questions. Make sure you don't skip it. That's the biggest mistake I see. The second biggest mistake let me rephrase that. After you're done with that, you're going to go here. You're going to go to this website. You're going to read it. Right? You're going to go through this. You're going to read all this. Then you go to the next section. You're going to read all that. And you're going to go to the next section and read all that. You're going to the next section. You're going to play a game. The point here is these questions serve as proof or evidence that you read that website. So, excuse me while I do that. So when you answer these questions, again, they need to come from this link, right? Don't look them up, because this serves as proof or evidence that you read the information in the website. That's why they're there. Let me see some other common mistakes I see here. Okay, question number 29. That's a 2-part question. Where was it found and who found it? So make sure you get both parts. Here's a question that is commonly missed. And this is probably not going to make much sense because you haven't read the website yet. But the dark color in the moths was caused by what? To be clear, the question isn't asking why the population started to change over time. The question is asking what caused the first dark moth. So make sure you get that correct, because they're in this website, they kind of explain both in the same paragraph, right? Here's what caused it. All these moths used to be light colored, and then this one thing happened, and now all of a sudden we have a few dark moths. And that's going to be the answer to the question. And then due to natural selection, the population changed and we had more and more dark moths. But this is asking what caused the very first dark moth. This is another common mistake. So what is natural selection? Again, you can read it right here. I want you to take this information and just summarize it in your own words, right? Just put it in your own words. Obviously, this right here, this first paragraph, that's it, right? That paragraph, summarize it in your own words. Don't copy it and paste it. Just summarize it in your own words. I'm trying to think of some other common mistakes. Okay, how do scientists test theories? I'll go ahead and tell you now. Again, pay attention. When you read it in the website, it'll say scientists test theories by making predictions based on those theories. That's the first part, but then keep going, because you can't, that's not obviously, if you think about what you're writing, that's obviously not a correct answer. You can't test a theory by just making a prediction, right? Let's say I have, based on the theory of evolution, I predict humans will, on average, be 12 feet tall in 300 years. There, I made a prediction. But did I test the theory of evolution? No, right? So make sure you're careful with that. All right. So then once you get here, this means you've read all that information in the website. Now you're moving on to playing this game. You can read about how to do it. It's pretty simple. I won't play the game, but I'll just show you what it means or what it looks like, right? So you're literally a bird like that trying to eat moths. That's all you're going to do, right? So do that, and I'll say this, and people mess this up. You need to get at least 40 moths in each simulation. So what I want from you when you do that is to get as many as you can. Some people, like when they're in the dark light forest, I can tell by their numbers that they're trying to prove a point and they're trying to get the light mods to maybe they just don't like the idea of natural selection. So they're just trying to, like, I don't know, be contrarian, whatever. Anyway, try to get as many mobs as you want. If you don't get 40, just do it again, right? You need to keep going until you get at least 40 mods in the light forest and 40 mods in the dark forest. And here's another thing. This one's very important because, man, my screen is freezing up. Hopefully you can still hear me. Anyway, when you're done, I need a screenshot, right? So I need a screenshot to prove that you finished finished the simulation. And now my screen is frozen up. Oh, there we go. Okay. So again, make sure you include that screenshot right here. That's proof that you went through the whole thing and you just didn't make some numbers up and put them in there. If you want to, you can make a graph for extra credit. It's up to you to figure out what kind of graph. That's part of the points that you would get. Here's another common mistake I see. Explain the concept of natural selection using these I shouldn't even say yours. Oh yeah, using the peppered moths as an example. So you need to use every one of these words, but not that are in bold, but not in this order. So when you describe the concept of natural selection using the moths as an example, you need to use the word advantage, generations, change, offspring, predator, population, reproduce, survive, and trait. Right? Every one of those words needs to be listed. Again, I'll remind you, if you need help, let me know. So that's a commonly missed question. This is a commonly missed question. What would happen if there were no predators in the forest? Would the colors of the moths change over time? There's a very simple answer to that based on strictly the information that you got in this lab. But if you read the textbook, there's other ways that things evolve. It's not just natural selection, right? There's other means of evolution. Therefore, there are actually different answers. So you need to answer, would they change over time? And then explain why they would or why they wouldn't. Any questions so far? Okay. As a reminder, save it as a PDF before you upload it. You got all this extra credit. There's 2 videos you could watch, and I highly recommend it because not only would you get extra credit, but these are very good videos for teaching the concepts that you're going to need to know for the exam. What else? All right, I think that's it. Really quickly, too, I'll remind you, the sooner you turn things in, the better, because it gives you more. The later you turn it in, the more strict I am with grading, or I guess you could say it the other way around. The sooner you turn it in, the more lenient I am, because I figure, hey, you didn't have as much time to prepare. As a matter of fact, I'm going to change that up. I will give you extra credit for turning it in early. So if you turn it in on Monday, and this goes for the lab or the discussion. No, let's just say the lab. If you turn it in on Monday, you get 5 points of extra credit. Tuesday, 4 points. Wednesday, 3 points, so on and so forth. And if you see that I didn't give you the extra credit, remind me that I said that, because I probably will forget. But I'm trying to get you guys to turn things in before the weekend, because I generally don't do any work over the weekend. I guess that's it. The last thing I want to say again, Module 2 quiz is due on Sunday. Exam 1 is due on Sunday. You have 50 questions to take 50 minutes to take about 50 questions. Email me if you want the study guide. I'll give it to you. And if you want more than 50 questions, email me so we can schedule a time to meet. If we can meet online like we are right now, and you can see my screen, or I can see your screen, and I can see you, and I can hear you. If I can ensure you're taking a closed book exam, I don't care how long it takes you to take the exam. I think that might be it. So the last word for attendance will be quiz, since that's up on the screen right there. Quiz is the last word for attendance. Other than, again, remember, the very last thing you need to include is one question based on everything that I've presented in this video. I just will give myself a couple seconds to think, make sure I haven't forgotten anything before we go. But yeah, I guess the biggest thing is, remember, I'm here to help. You don't have to do anything alone. Fix your mistakes, turn in your late work, meet me online for feedback. You know, you have a due extra credit, right? You have a lot of options to enhance your grade. I I think that's it. Can you think of anything, Mallory? Is there anything any questions you have, or if you were in my shoes, anything you think I should address?
I don't think so. I think you provided a lot of good information and feedback for the first
All
one.
right.
So,
Well, thank you for your feedback, or for answering that, and also thank you for meeting with me. Don't forget to send me the email. You are going to get a little bit more extra credit than most people, because anybody else who's doing this is going to be watching the video, and they can speed through the video. You had to sit through the full 47 minutes, so you're going to get more extra credit. All right, I guess that's it then. So again, if you guys need me, please let me help you. I'm here to help you. I know it's an online course, but you don't have to go at this alone. Yeah, that's it. Let me stop recording.